excited to be here chatting about what David was talking about before too, which is taking the signal-based approach to go to market. And this talk is going to be mostly centered around signal selection, which is the number one question that I tend to get when it comes to using this approach, which is, okay, which signals do I start with? What plays do I run? How do they convert? Hopefully this talk will help answer a lot of those questions for you and also provide you with some resources. So let's jump into the why to start things off of why you would want to take this signal-based approach to go to market. And this is what I like to call the NASCAR slide of doom, which is it's kind of like been this perfect storm. It's maybe less applicable or things are trending the right direction now, but in the last few years, it's been rough out there for go-to-market teams. There's been mass layoffs. AI is replacing us. Efficiency is going down. The predictable revenue playbook is no longer effective. Most teams aren't hitting quota. It's kind of glum. It's not good out there. So essentially the gist of this is that our go-to-market teams are being asked to do more with less. And the way that one way to do that in a really effective way is through using signals to inform go-to-market, and then also to use them for personalized outbound and prioritization and all sorts of stuff. And so let's level set on what that means. What does signal-based go-to-market mean? And it's essentially capturing buying signals, but not only that, but identifying the person, like David was talking about this, identifying who's in market, what accounts those signals roll up into, and then using them to inform your go-to-market strategy, and then taking action with context. And so to me, this is kind of like the promise or the holy grail of go-to-market, or the holy grail of marketing, which is the ability to reach the right person with the right message at the right time. And it's really cool to see the landscape and the market kind of evolve and make this this is kind of coming to fruition, which has always been a promise in the last as long as I've been marketing, really. And so really happy that it's actually a thing. And the reason why it's a thing is I like to share this kind of Venn diagram to explain. I used to call this marketing is easy, but marketing and go to market are also kind of one and the same. And where you see effective outcomes is essentially in the center of this diagram. And so what this is surfacing is, one part of the Venn diagram is your audience. And I would classify audience by not only the traits that make up someone who would be a good candidate for your product, but also the signals that they are communicating, whether it's website visit or product activity or what have you. Combining those two things would make up this audience circle of the equation, and then the other part is the offer. So it's combining signal-based go-to-market is kind of combining that audience with what do you say to them? Do you offer them a free trial? Do you give them a free resource? And then the bigger the overlap between those two things, typically the more higher converting your go-to-market approaches will be. And by go-to-market approach, I mean your outbound messages, your marketing campaigns, all that kind of stuff. And so to kind of tie the threads together here of signals to an audience, signals to build your audience and offer, we can use an example here. Let's see, what do I have here? So for examples on the signals on the left here, you can say okay, a LinkedIn connection with a sales rep of a competitor, someone is probably, that's a signal that someone who you probably want to sell into is evaluating another tool, and you might want to get ahead of that for an RFP. So that's a good signal to take action if that person fits your criteria. And then how that would inform your offer would be to maybe send them a connection request along with a case study of why someone chose you over that competitor that they're now connected to. And so I'm not going to go through all these examples, but that's kind of a way to kind of tie it all together with an example of this signal happened, we know it's from the right person. And then how do we use that combination of things to put forth the best offer that will get that person to pay attention and take action. Okay, so let's jump into where to get started here, like how to actually start doing this go-to-market motion of signal-based plays. And I like to start here with this, what I call the T-shaped funnel. I know this kind of maybe looks complex, but essentially, like the hypothesis or the concept behind this is that if you work backwards from a deal closing, like a signed agreement, there are steps along the funnel that all kind of beget each other. So before a signed agreement, there's procurement process. Before procurement, there's maybe a proof of concept of trialing your product. Before that, there's a salesperson like doing BANT or bed pick qualification and stamping pipeline. Before that, there's a discovery call. And then before that, there's that's this area here at this inflection point is where signals combined with audience become a play to run. And what I mean by that is, it's this whole entire funnel is linear until it's not. And so when it's not is where there's things like pricing visits, product activations. Like there's a number of signals that happen that are triggers for either your sales reps, your SDR teams, or maybe your marketing teams to pass over something and start taking action to book a meeting, to get to this next discovery call. And the area where I like to start with in terms of like, okay, which signals do we want to start taking action on is kind of like do an inventory of what's working right now, and then and start there. So maybe you have, you're running webinars, or maybe you already are looking at job change signals, or maybe you're looking at email opens and stuff like that. And when you take inventory of that and map it to like, okay, what is the volume of signal that we're getting from these things that our SDR team or our reps are taking action on? What is the conversion rate of those things? And you can kind of like score the different signals that you're already taking action on. I can almost guarantee that everyone's using signals in some way. It might be just a product sign up or a demo request, which is pretty straightforward. But there's probably a starting point. Otherwise, you wouldn't really have any pipeline, any revenue in place. So I like to start here of like what's working now, and then we can kind of like expand the aperture after that. These are all examples of things that you might have in consideration for getting started. I'm not going to like just read through this, but it's a good list of things to evaluate that are probably like things you're already doing right now. And then I'll get into like the areas of expansion too. In order to like identify these signals that you would start with, there's a few things that I like to go to or turn to figure out like, okay, what should we prioritize? And this area on the left here is to just go out there and I know maybe it sounds scary, but like go out there and talk to prospects. Like if you are sitting in on sales calls and you're understanding the pain points and problems of your customers and your prospects, like they will tell you like you can also ask the right questions, but they'll typically tell you like, okay, here's how I found out about you. Here's the problem. Here's what moved me from like being not in market to now in market. And that's like a really good qualitative way to figure out, what potential signals you can start to like add to your arsenal of what you're already doing. And then the other area that I look to as well is I really like, you can use normal attribution for this too, I guess, but I really like having an open-ended field in the like inbound flow. So when someone's signing up for your product, or they're signing up for a webinar or requesting a demo, I really like to ask an open-ended question of how did you hear about us? Because oftentimes when people report this, it could be, oh, I heard about you on LinkedIn. I heard about you within this community. This newsletter mentioned you, whatever. Like that is often a good place to identify signals that you maybe don't know about that your inbound leads are finding you through. And you can tap into those and get above the funnel before they actually take those actions and start to identify accounts and intent before it actually happens. Okay, so the other exercise that I like to do, and we kind of like talked about this a little bit earlier, which is kind of map out the volume conversion rate and like assign a score to the signals that you're already tracking. And so we created this like little calculator, this heuristic of how do you know if actioning a signal is efficient or not. And what you're looking for is to tack your signals to, okay, when we act on this, it gets this conversion rate. Therefore, this signal and our conversion rate to, sorry, let me back that up because I want to be clear. So we get this volume of signals. This converts to some sort of predictable metric in that like T shape where it's very predictable going down the funnel. So that's typically pipeline. So these signals convert to pipeline at this rate. Because a signal becomes pipeline, it means that when our average close rate is 20% or something, that means for each one of these signals, we're able to do the back of napkin math that it's like worth this amount of revenue or this amount of pipeline. And so when you look at things that way, you can start to score the different signals that your team is acting on, and then say like, oh, these are above the line because they're more efficient. Like, let's take this one here. A product activation signal converts at 20%, or sorry, 15%. Like the time spent for our team to act on that signal is not a lot, and it's generating a net positive revenue for us. But maybe this signal of webinar attended, our team is working these 200 leads. It's a lot of work for them, but it only converts the pipeline at 2%. And that is below the line of what we deem as acceptable as in terms of efficiency. So if our team was working all of these leads in the red, we'd essentially be having a net negative revenue generation. It would be like burning cash essentially. So this is kind of like the lens that I look at, should you action a signal or not? Okay. And then this is where things get kind of fun. Hopefully, I don't know if I can share this in the chat, but essentially like I created this because, this isn't super helpful. I created this spreadsheet of 100 signals that we've seen across all of our customers and just like what I've used personally in the companies that I've advised. And it's a really, I feel like starting with a blank slate is not always fun. And you're like, okay, what's actually out there? Let me kind of like narrow down from here. And so I've created this spreadsheet that that gives you lots of different contexts and signals that you can potentially consider. Now, this, maybe I'll just even go to it. I think I'm sharing my, I'm sharing my screen here. So hopefully everyone can see this, and you can see that there's a bunch of signals here, and you can sort by, all sorts of things like, what type of signal is it? What funnel stage is it? What's the signal strength? Like, what's the likelihood to convert? And then it's a little overwhelming. So what I've done from here is then group these signals into different categories. And this is also actually on the same spreadsheet. If you just go from tab to tab to tab, you can see how these signals are grouped. And so this is a really nice way, to me, it's a really nice way to eliminate signals by like mass eliminate signals by way of, we don't even do that. We can't even track that as a signal. And so a good example of that is maybe like this open source signal here, which is, if you're not a dev tooling company, or if you don't have a, GitHub repo or something like that, like open source signals are probably not that applicable to you. Or, if you're if you have a sales-led motion and you aren't running any kind of like self-serve, your product isn't self-serve, product signals are probably not a good signal for you to start with. And so by grouping things in this way, you can go back to this, or you can use this calculator here, or this sheet here to like then filter by types of signals. So like maybe we want to only include website and product led, and we can then filter by like, oh, here are all the signals that we maybe want to consider on this tab here. So hopefully that makes sense. I know it's a little, I went into a rabbit hole there. Hopefully that's clear on like the grouping side of things. And then I want to get into next, like once you've grouped to maybe like a dozen or so signals, how do you then prioritize which one of those to get started with? And for that, I kind of hit on this in the spreadsheet as well. You can kind of see it here as like, okay, let's select out of this 100 signal spreadsheet, like let's select the ones that we think are the dozen or so that we want to put into consideration. And then the next thing that you would do from there is to go, I'm going to just go back to this. Oh, I should go full screen here. I would go back to this kind of like heuristic of like, okay, of these signals, how much volume are we getting? And then what is our conversion rate, or what is our estimated conversion rate? And so if you look in this spreadsheet here, you can kind of see this mapped out to the propensity score, which is like the likelihood to convert, and then like the volume here. And so let me just select like some random stuff here, and say, if I only want to look at these signals that are applicable, I'm going to say, I want to make sure it's true. And so here we have, what is this count? That's not the right thing. 8 signals here that we want to have in consideration. And then, so from here, what I would look at is, okay, what is the likelihood to convert, and what is the volume here? And try and figure out, like, map these onto like a graph of, with one of these as a y-axis and one of these as an x-axis. And the good news is that I've done this for you already here. And so you can see, how this is mapped out in terms of propensity to convert, and then also volume of signal. And so what you're looking for in terms of like how to action is the stuff, in terms of where to start for actioning on signals, is in this like upper right quadrant here. I think I actually have a slide on this. So let me jump to that real quick here. Yeah. So what you're looking for is this magic quadrant for signal selection, where you have an outsized conversion, an outsized propensity to buy, and compared to volume. And so like these are all hypothetical. Like, I've designed this spreadsheet so that you can go in there and change the numbers to, or make a copy of it, I guess, and then change the numbers to like what your estimation or hypothesis of these things are, and then click to get to that tab. And so you can start to see like, okay, which of these signals do I actually want to start with? I skipped over a little bit of a concept that like leads into this as well, which I'm going to go back and revisit right now. And so that is this spectrum here. And this is just like a general observation. Hopefully it's helpful context for how you action and prioritize signals. But the gist of this is the higher the volume of signals, typically the lower intent they are, and the lower the likelihood for them to convert is. And so at this far left end of the spectrum, you can see that, just cold outbound is a practically like limitless amount of prospects or whoever you could use. It's like virtually no signal, but has a very, very low conversion rate. But then on the far right end, it could be a hand raiser, like a demo request as a signal, which gets a low volume, but a really, really high conversion rate. In fact, like in this gray area here, it's the signal is high intent. They're so far along the funnel typically that you don't even need like a human to intervene and evaluate what the signal is. Like, this is what Chili Piper is built for, or these calendaring tools are built for. Is like, someone's raising a hand for a demo request. We know that they're in our target account, and like, we're just going to let them book a meeting, and there's no human intervention. And so the sweet spot for signal selection, especially on the like sales go-to-market side of things, is kind of in this like yellow grouping here, which is like, okay, we're getting the signal. It needs some sort of human review. It needs someone to evaluate and understand like what's going on behind the signal. Like, are they looking at a competitor? Are they, just considering the category? Are they doing like, want to do an RFP or whatever? And this essentially needs human review. And so I would start, and essentially this is what this exercise here is doing, is essentially helping you to start in this, highest converting area first. And essentially, once you do that, you're running this play. And then once you exhaust that play, you're going to move to the next play. And then the idea is to just keep on stacking plays and plays on top of each other. And so that your reps are essentially doing running prioritized plays to prioritize their day and to be more efficient, versus just doing like cold outbound based on like, this random group of accounts that are were selected by an ops person, but don't necessarily have any intent or signal behind them. I was going to do it live. I think I kind of did do it live, where I jumped through the signals here. hopefully this is a helpful resource. And of course, I'm happy to like help provide guidance to anyone on this stream here. Oops. Let's see, what else do I have? I'm running up on the end here. I guess one other concept after like starting with signal selection is to then this is kind of what David was talking about in the last presentation, actually, which is around like micro campaigns. So essentially, like if you are able to not only identify a signal and the right account behind that signal, you can stack multiple signals beyond that. So you can say like, okay, all of our product usage signals, let's see who of that cohort are also visiting our terms of service page, who of that cohort are also like, adding things to their tech stack or changing jobs. And like by stacking these signals together, you can, you get a small number, a small volume of people, but like you can have build outbound sequences and build micro campaigns that get like a really, really high conversion rate just because you have so much context of what the person or the account has done. And then, last thing I have here is that is a plug for Common Room. The Common Room is a company I work for. We do all of this stuff. We do signal capture. We actually call ourselves a customer intelligence platform, which David was talking about. And so what that means is we capture signals from all sorts of first party, second party, and third party sources. You can also, bring your own signal along and integrate with Common Room with many, many different integrations. And then not only do we do that, we tell you the person and the account behind the signal. So we do the identity resolution, which is a fancy word of saying like connecting all the dots between first party, second party, and third party signals. So you get the holistic view of the customer journey in one place. And then also the ability to filter to say like, okay, I only want to look at like website signals from economic buyers in North America and merge those two into a single group. And then also the last thing is to take action on that, which would be to like send them to an outreach sequence, sync them over to send an alert via Slack when something happens. And so it's essentially what Common Room does is the ability to do signal execution from end to end, from capturing signals all the way to outbound execution. So we have a free version you can try and use, and you can get to pull in signal in Common Room in under 5 minutes. So a plug to check it out. And also I'm talking about this stuff a lot on LinkedIn, and I'm a bit early, so happy to take questions or just pause and give people some time back. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. I did see one question come in. So if you're a smaller company with more limited resources, how do you decide which signals to prioritize?
Yeah, again, I would just go back to which signals that you're already capturing, or what is your like go-to-market motion. So if you're a small company and you have a product-led motion, like ideally you're getting product signals, people signing up, and maybe I would start there. There's also another concept that I didn't really touch on, which is kind of interesting, which is sometimes these smaller companies are selling to the enterprise. And so when that's the case, you probably have 100 to 1,000 accounts that you are in your TAM or your serviceable addressable market. And so one thing you can do when that's the case is to kind of like upload or identify all those accounts and then find signal, like have a tool or platform like Common Room go like fetch signal from those accounts, which could be like hiring trends or job changes. And so I don't know if that fully answers the question, other than just like it kind of depends. It really depends on your go-to-market motion and like where you think the best channel will be. And hopefully that spreadsheet that I shared will help you like group and think through things of like, okay, I know I want to start in, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. I know I want to start in the website visit bucket because we get a decent amount of website traffic. Like start there, and then like, you can expand over time and try and start at like the highest converting part first too.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Well, thank you again for joining us today. And then just a reminder, if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to Kevin and go follow him on LinkedIn. He has great content.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jenny.